The experiential learning theory describes learning as a dialectic process that involves taking experiences and transforming them through reflective observation, forming theories based on these reflections, and testing this new created knowledge in future practice. Translating this into a tertiary education environment is important for clinical and professional development, especially in paramedic practice. The education of paramedic students has changed significantly over the past years, moving from a primarily experience-based model with more time on road to a university degree. In the classroom, this learning cycle can typically be observed through applying taught theory to practical scenarios and clinical placement, and reflection through debriefing and self-assessments. This is followed by considering the relevance of your education and identifying and implementing required changes, and finally applying this to the next case or scenario. This experiential cycle is valuable as it can be applied regardless of learning style. All types of students are catered for and will thus benefit. It can also be adapted and applied to all areas of learning critical to paramedic development, including clinical, social, and professional experiences. A part of the cycle particularly relevant to paramedics and emergency services is reflection in the form of debriefing. The key purpose of this is to improve critical thinking, clinical decision-making, and overall performance, that is, to learn. It provides the basis for abstracts to be conceptualized and allows each member of the group to experience the learning cycle from different perspectives. Several factors impact a student's ability to learn through debriefing. These include psychological safety and group solidarity, exploration of thoughts, feedback from different perspectives, and group facilitation. Therefore, it can be seen how ensuring a high-quality debrief will contribute to advancement through the experiential cycle. Studies also show how simulation in isolation does not allow completion of this process, with feedback and reflection the most important components. These are vital for identifying the reasoning behind actions and building on or enhancing these to implement in the final stage of learning. To ensure best application of the cycle to each individual student, both parties must understand the individual learning styles mentioned previously and their impacts on learning. Let's do a quick quiz to determine which one you are. Just pause the video if you need more time. So now that you have your main learning style, let's see how this relates to the experiential learning cycle. Diverging learners learn best through reflecting on concrete experiences and working in groups. Assimilating learners focus on reflective observation and abstract conceptualization, taking abstract ideas based on their experiences and turning them into logical formats. Converging learners focus on solving technical problems through abstract conceptualization and active experimentation. Finally, accommodators are hands-on learners who perform practical and active experimentation based on their concrete experiences. It is becoming increasingly difficult to obtain exposure to patients to create the experiences that facilitate learning, and it can be seen how a classroom-based education could potentially put practical learners at a disadvantage. Therefore, paramedic educators must ensure the simulation learning process is realistic and effective. Active learning through simulations is important for information retention and student satisfaction, which correlates with improved academic and practical performance in the long term. From personal experience as a paramedic student, following the cycle by being taught the complex underpinning physiological concepts and being given the opportunity to apply these soon after in the form of scenarios is key for developing knowledge that is retained long term. This is consolidated by reflection through a group debrief, which is most successful when the facilitator asks non-ambiguous, structured questions. Points raised in this process are often elaborated on later in self-reflection. According to Australian paramedic students, the majority experienced high levels of satisfaction with simulation-based training. This was based on factors such as the provision of constructive criticism by the facilitator and their ability to highlight key points during debrief, quality questions that fostered self-reflection, and the opportunity to raise queries and concerns in a comfortable environment. When considering that paramedic practice typically involves mentoring multiple students, the importance of developing your professional ability in this educational role, as well as your clinical ability as a new paramedic, is highlighted. Hopefully, the importance of understanding this cycle and being able to apply it is already obvious. This becomes increasingly clear when we consider the three key areas impacted by learning that we touched on before: clinical ability, social aspects, and professionalism. Firstly, the ability of scenarios themselves to facilitate measurable learning outcomes influences students' self-reported satisfaction with using simulation as part of the cycle to develop their clinical skills and ability. Significant features and learning outcomes included the extent to which clinical ability was tested, identification of strengths and weaknesses, and the ability to develop clinical reasoning and decision-making, which is a key objective, particularly for new clinicians. These clinical decisions are typically guided by a combination of intuition, experience, and acquired knowledge. As inexperience is one of the greatest weaknesses of graduating students, ability to rely on any past experiences and knowledge obtained from this process is especially important. Secondly, the experiential learning model is also a form of social learning, which has been shown to improve social intelligence. This is critical for paramedics, particularly in communication with patients, colleagues, and other services. Enhancing social intelligence also develops important traits such as empathy, contributing to the quality of interactions. Research shows a structured learning approach improves self-awareness, ability to manage confrontation in difficult situations, controlling interactions to achieve desired outcomes, awareness of other perceptions, and conflict resolution. This is evident both with patients and other healthcare personnel, and when cultural or linguistical differences exist. Developing structured methods for each phase ensures all learning styles are catered for, and this is something that must be considered in an educational role. A holistic approach encompassing classroom education in theory and simulations, workplace development of ideas and new learning experiences, and personal development and growth appears most beneficial. This process must also be meaningful, allowing for continuity of experiences and not only be considered in isolation. Research determines how encouraging conscious experiential learning is essential, where professionals such as paramedics are required to meet set standards. This ensures continual development and leads to professional confidence and ability. Furthermore, it can be seen this does not only contribute to the learner's patient in a clinical setting, but to others taught by the learner and their patients. Now let's take everything we have just learned and discuss how to put it into practice through active experimentation in the future. In this phase, we need to consider an action plan based on areas for improvement and learning outcomes from the analysis of this experiential cycle. Think back to your quiz result and pay particular attention to the most important phases to your learning style. Here's a quick reminder if you need it. The following methods have been suggested for each stage, and it can be seen how the program paramedic students undergo provides an ideal environment to enact these. Concrete experiences that form a solid basis for experiential learning include simulations, case study analyses, and treating patients en route. For example, learners should embrace opportunities on clinical placements to run cases and interact with patients, particularly as students with mentors present to help continue the cycle through observation and reflection. Recommended activities for this include discussion, group activities, receiving feedback and mentoring, reading, and shadowing, all of which students are exposed to throughout their education. Abstract conceptualization can occur through sharing content, becoming aware of different perspectives, and facilitated discussion. Finally, students have the opportunity for active experimentation through ongoing exposure on placement, classroom scenarios, and assessment items. The process is relatively straightforward. However, the key is to learn how to learn and to turn this into a conscious and meaningful activity in all experiences. This comes with awareness and practice and will best benefit long-term learning and career outcomes, as well as those impacted by your professional performance. Furthermore, the completion of the experiential learning cycle results in the obtaining of another experience, therefore facilitating another cycle as the process continues.